Hello. Climate change is defined as changes to Earth's climate, including global warming, produced primarily by increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases created by human activity, such as burning of fossil fuels and deforestation. Climate change is, as a concept, it's existed for thousands of years, ever since the days of the ancient Greeks. They thought that they could control the weather by chopping down trees, irrigating deserts, plowing fields, and that belief kind of existed up until the 1930s in the United States, overplowing of infertile lands because they believed that the rain would follow the plow, but it only really resulted in the Dust Bowl. But we're 200 years from the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and around that time the introduction of fossil fuels for energies, and the unintended consequences of their use has resulted in a snowball effect that's catastrophic for the Earth's environment. Uh, I believe that the most pressing issue in the social world today is that issue of climate change, because scientists around the world have now deemed it as an unstoppable force. It'll be detrimental and have consequences on the environment and the whole world. It'll affect every living being and lay waste to many species around the world. But the controversy here, why haven't we just stopped using fossil fuels? Like, wouldn't it be a lot cleaner if we just went all renewable? Well, the fossil fuel industry is one of the biggest industries on the planet. It has a market value of over $4.6 trillion, and they don't want to lose any cuts of their shares. They want to keep their industry prosperous. The current status quo of the United States is that renewable energy only accounts for 11% of the United States primary energy consumption. That's a quote from the United States Energy Information Administration. Currently, all of the renewable energies that we have are geothermal, solar, hydroelectric, wind, biomass waste, biofuels, and wood. But another 11, that all of that only contains 11% of the energy that we use. But another 11% of the energy that we get is strictly from coal. And nuclear energy takes up 8%, petroleum 37%, we get most of our energy from that, and natural gas is 32%. But what is a fossil fuel? The Smithsonian calls a fossil fuel a compound mixture made of fossilized plant and animal remnants from a million years ago. And the creation of these fossil fuels, either oil or natural gas or coal, is determined by the type of fossil, the amount of heat, and the amount of pressure they receive over the millions of years underground. Fossil fuels are taken from Earth as a natural resource, and they're burned to create energy. And it's a process that's non-renewable, and it emits emissions that contribute to global climate change. And societies perceive this issue of global warming in different ways around the world. I mean, findings support that there's evidence that citizens in developing countries collectively consider global warming a significant issue, and a more significant issue than developed countries around the world. Out of 34 surveyed countries in 2016, over half of the population, 21 of those countries, felt that global warming was a very serious problem. And 14 of those countries were overwhelmingly convinced that human activity is significant in causing these changes to the Earth's climate and long-term weather patterns. There's also evidence that factors that there's different things that weigh on how we perceive climate change, such as our peers' views and how our cultural philosophies differ, and a few scientific evidence. But renewable energy is energy that's produced and can be produced over and over without creating CO2 and without emitting emissions into the atmosphere. They are provided from the sources that I listed earlier, and they reduce carbon dioxide. So hopefully one day we can get the United States to reach a zero emission state that some countries have already reached, and over 20 others have set net zero emissions to be met by 2050. But investing in these renewable sources are very expensive at first, but they're very cheap in the long term when compared to fossil fuels. Most of the investment is upfront, and keeping these sources maintained is very cheap. But switching a whole country to run onto renewable energies is a very tall task, and history suggests that governments will only take such action if there's an intense amount of pressure on them to do so, because otherwise the scale and ambition of the task, plus opposition from multiple powerful vested interests, and their own fear of losing office, coupled with reluctance to tell the public that there's serious mitigation action, could be costly, though it's not even as remotely costly as not taking action at all. All incline governments to maintain the fossil fuel status quo. But until that time that our government starts to take real action to try to save the planet, it's up to the individual person to try to make changes to reduce your own carbon footprint. Carbon footprint is the amount of carbon dioxide and methane that a average person releases into the atmosphere in their own lifetime. And currently in the US, the average stands about 16 tons, which is 4 times the amount of the worldwide average. And so we can do things to reduce that, like wasting less water, wasting less food. 40% of America's food goes straight into a landfill, which produces carbon dioxide as well, a significant amount. So waste less water, waste less food, plant more trees. These are all things that we can do to lower our own carbon footprint. But back to the fossil fuel industries, they use this keyword natural from natural gas, and they continue to spend billions of dollars lining the pockets of governments, officials, and funding campaigns to steer a narrative that because it's natural, it must be good, which is a blatant lie in the face of the entire world. And these multi-billion dollar companies try to hide their accountability. The job of the people is to not let them get away with it, with plundering our planet, and hold these companies accountable, as well as our governments, for being complicit for so long. I mean, now it's too late to reverse the coming consequences, but the only thing that we can do now is try to slow the effects and try to preserve this planet while we can. So, thank you for listening. Have a good day.